There's a guy, right now, maybe it's you, sitting in his living room on a Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Nobody's asking him where the remote is. Nobody's telling him dinner's getting cold. Nobody's slamming a door down the hall. The house is quiet, and he's fine. At least, that's what he says. I'm Frank, and today we're getting inside the head of the Gen X man who lives alone. What his life actually looks like, how he got there, and most importantly, whether he's genuinely at peace with it, or whether he's performing peace so well that even he can't tell the difference anymore. Right now, about 65% of single midlife men in the U.S. live alone, according to a study from the National Center for Family and Marriage Research at Bowling Green University using 2021 census data, 2 out of 3. And if you narrow it down to men between 50 and 59, 41% of those living alone have never been married, not divorced, not widowed, never walked down the aisle. That number used to be tiny. In 1970, only 7% of midlife adults had never been married. By 2020, it was close to 29%, 4 times more in 50 years. Something shifted, and Gen X is sitting right in the middle of that shift. So what does a regular day look like for this guy? It depends who you ask, but a lot of them have built a routine that works so well, people on the outside mistake it for loneliness. The morning starts early. Coffee is made exactly the way he likes it, because no one else's preferences are in the equation anymore. He checks his phone, not for messages from a partner, but for the news. Maybe a group chat with 3 friends he's known since high school. He goes to work. Or if he's already retired, he has a project. Could be the garage, could be a side gig, could be a YouTube rabbit hole about woodworking, old motorcycles, or military history. Dinner happens whenever he wants, 5 p.m. or 9 p.m. There's no schedule he didn't set himself, and that's where people on the outside keep getting it wrong. They look at this man and see someone missing something. But a lot of these guys aren't sitting around wondering where their life went. They're doing exactly what they want, when they want, with nobody to negotiate with. The house is theirs. The money is theirs. The silence is theirs. For some of them, that silence is the first real quiet they've had in decades. How did he get there? That's where it gets interesting, because there's more than one road to this address. Some never married, and it wasn't a protest or a wound. It just happened. Maybe they were building a career in their 20s and 30s. Maybe they were in relationships that lasted years, but never tipped over into a wedding. Pew Research found that by 2019, 39% of men ages 25 to 54 were unpartnered, not married and not living with someone. That was 29% in 1990. A lot of these men were in relationships. They just never made the legal leap. And the longer you wait, the more your life shapes itself around solo living. You get good at it. You build a home, literal or figurative, that fits one person. And then someone comes along and asks, "So, why did you never get married?" Like you owe them an explanation. Then there's the guy who was married, and it ended. He's not bitter about it. Or maybe he is. Either way, he's alone now. And the research on this one is rough. A study cited in Psychology Today found that unmarried men between 40 and 60 are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide than married men or unmarried women in the same age range. Divorced men specifically? 8 times more than divorced women. That's not a typo. 8 times. The reason researchers keep pointing to is this. A lot of men build their entire social world around their partner. She's the one who kept the friendships going. She planned the dinners. She remembered birthdays. When the marriage ends, the entire social infrastructure collapses like a house with only one load-bearing wall. He's not just losing a wife. He's losing the person who connected him to everyone else. That's the split. On one side, the never-married guy who learned how to be alone years ago. On the other, the divorced guy learning it for the first time at 52. Same apartment. Completely different experience. But there's another group almost nobody talks about, and they've been living alone longer than anyone. Gay Gen X men, and more broadly, LGBTQ+ adults. They are twice as likely to live alone and 4 times as likely to have no children, according to the American Society on Aging. Gay and bisexual men specifically are twice as likely to live alone as straight men. And a lot of these men came up during the AIDS crisis. They lost entire friend groups in their 20s and 30s and had to rebuild social circles from scratch. Some of them live alone not because they chose to, but because the people they would have grown old with didn't make it. The AARP's 2025 loneliness study found that 46% of LGBTQ+ respondents said they were lonely, higher than the overall rate for people their age. That number carries real weight. Is the Gen X man who lives alone an introvert? A lot of people assume that if he's alone, he must prefer it. And honestly, for some of them, that's true. But the data says something more complicated. AARP released a study on Gen X men and friendship in early 2026. The results were striking. 95% of men surveyed said friends are essential to a happy, healthy life. 95%. So it's not that they don't care about people, not at all. The issue is how they connect, or don't. Men in the study were less likely than women to volunteer, attend any kind of regular gathering, or join a community group. Only 19% belong to a local organization, compared to 24% of women. And the friendships they do have? The study called them high passion, low vulnerability. They'll talk about sports, politics, music for hours, but they won't say, "I haven't had a real conversation with another human being in 11 days." That's the part that hits. These guys have friends. A lot of them have had the same friends for 20 or 30 years, but they don't call. They don't text beyond logistics. They don't say, "Hey, I've been feeling off lately. You got a minute?" The AARP researchers put it this way. Men connect shoulder to shoulder. Women connect face to face. Men do things together. Women talk to each other. Both are valid ways to connect. But when you live alone and your buddy is 500 miles away, the connection fades down to a group chat nobody actually reads. So, are they lonely? Some are. AARP's December 2025 Loneliness Report found that 42% of men ages 45 and older are lonely today, up from 34% in 2018. And men in their late 40s and 50s are hit harder than those in their 60s and 70s. Nearly half, 46% of people ages 45 to 59, reported feeling lonely. But here's the part that messes with the narrative. Loneliness goes down as people age. The older they get, the less lonely they report being. The Gen X man who's struggling at 53 might feel completely different at 67. That's not a guarantee, but it's a pattern that's held up across 3 rounds of AARP surveys going back to 2010. What does the Gen X man who lives alone actually do with his time? This is where the stereotype falls apart. People picture a guy slouched on his couch watching TV in the dark. And yeah, maybe that's somebody. But a lot of these men have hobbies that eat up hours. And they don't need an audience for it. Woodworking, restoring cars, cooking elaborate meals for one person and not apologizing for it, fishing alone at 6 a.m., running, lifting weights at a gym where he doesn't know anyone's name and prefers it that way, playing guitar in a room where nobody tells him to turn it down, a garden that produces more tomatoes than one man could ever eat, which he then gives away to neighbors he barely speaks to. Gen X men who live alone tend to split into 2 camps. There's the one who fills every waking hour with activity, work, projects, exercise, always something going. because stillness makes him nervous. And there's the one who sits with the silence like it's an old friend. He reads. He watches a documentary. He stares out the window for 20 minutes and calls it thinking. Both of these guys are managing the same thing. A life with no built-in accountability partner. Nobody asking, "What are you doing today?" Nobody caring if he skips the gym or eats cereal for dinner. And then there's the question that hangs over all of it. Does he love it or hate it? The honest answer for most of them is both at the same time. On a Saturday afternoon, when the weather's right and the house is clean and there's a cold drink and a good game on, there's nothing better. He's the king of a kingdom built for one. No compromises, no arguments about what color to paint the hallway or whose turn it is to take out the trash. On those days, he wouldn't trade it for anything. But there's the other side. The side he doesn't post about. A bad medical result, and nobody in the waiting room. A holiday that goes by without a phone call. The moment right before sleep, when the house makes a noise and there's no one to say, "Did you hear that?" That's where the difference between being alone and feeling alone shows up. And a lot of Gen X men have spent so many years practicing independence that they don't know how to ask for company anymore. They've been handling things by themselves since they were kids. Asking for help feels like failure. And failure was never an option in the house they grew up in. The Cigna Loneliness in America report from 2025 found that 60% of Gen X adults qualify as lonely. 60%. That's higher than boomers. And these are people who, from the outside, look like they've got it together. A job, a house, a car, a routine. The loneliness doesn't look like loneliness. It looks like a guy who's just busy, who's doing fine, who doesn't need anything from anybody. And if you push him on it, he'll change the subject to last night's game. Here's what makes the Gen X man who lives alone different from any other generation in that position. He grew up in a time when self-reliance wasn't encouraged. It was mandatory. You figured things out. You didn't ask for directions, literally or emotionally. You handled your own problems. And that wiring doesn't just disappear at 55. It runs underneath everything. That's why he can live alone for 15 years and genuinely not think anything's wrong. And it's why when something is wrong, when the loneliness gets heavy, when the health scare gets real, when the silence stops feeling like freedom and starts feeling like a cage, he still won't pick up the phone. The AARP Friendship Study found something that captures this perfectly. Men's friendships often last 20 years or more. They hold on to the same guys from high school, the military, their first job. But they don't maintain the connection. The wire goes dead. Not because they stopped caring, but because nobody taught them how to keep it live. Women will call to check in. Men wait for a reason to call. And sometimes years go by without one. That's the Gen X man who lives alone. He's not broken, he's built. Assembled in a specific way by a specific set of circumstances. He can fix a leaky faucet, manage his own finances, cook himself a good steak, and go weeks without a meaningful human conversation, and he'll call it freedom. Maybe it is. But freedom without connection has a shelf life. And at some point, the question stops being, "Do you like living alone?" and starts being, "Does anyone know you're here?" Before I go, I put together a book called Psychology of Gen X. It came out of doing this channel and realizing there was a bigger story connecting all of these topics. If you want to take a look, the link is in the description. And if you're the guy on the couch right now, house quiet, watching this, I'm not going to tell you to go sign up for a pottery class or join a club. That's not your speed, and we both know it. But call that friend you haven't talked to in 3 years. Not because something's wrong, just because 3 years is too long. That's it. One call. See what happens. Because the guy on the other end of the line, he's probably sitting in a quiet house too. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.